Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where we explore how to engage and align everyone in an organisation to execute continuous improvement and innovation. This show brings you insights from global experts and practitioners who share their journeys in creating cultures of excellence to deliver sustainable results and a better future.
Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to bring you this show today myself. I've been working with organisations on excellence journeys, creating cultures of continuous improvement and innovation now for over 20 years, providing all the great results that these organisations achieve around productivity, quality, engagement, safety, customer outcomes, you name it. I've also been fortunate to work with and learn from many of the legends in our field over the years. And I've got to especially mention Chris Butterworth, Dr. Peter Hines, Alex Teo, Gary Peterson and Gary Stewart in more recent times. I've put this show together to provide you, the listener, with our current best way of thinking in relation to how to transform organisations to cultures of continuous improvement and innovation at all levels that deliver all the results that a company desires. It's like a simple approach that basically gives a company everything they're after. And I'm going to provide visuals on YouTube, but you can learn through this show and listen to it on just a podcast app also. So let's get to the show. I really hope you gain some good value and knowledge from this. So everyone, if you look at it, many companies have achieved insane results over the last 30 years, like dramatic growth, insane productivity, huge profitability, amazing innovation, high engagement, great customer experience outcomes. We all know the names. And there's been a lot that you might not know, like companies like Signet, companies like Farah, companies like BEC, Rudd, Chain, you name them, they're out there who are also doing it from a more mid-level organisation. Now, when you look at it, these companies have really driven our whole world forward in relation to economic outcomes and also social and environmental as well, with many of them doing great things there. The challenge is that most organizations, I should say at the minute, are challenged in relation to the level of pressure they're feeling, the amount of problems, frustration on trying to engage employees, frustration around losing employees, frustration on the loss of knowledge, challenges around quality, challenges around safety, you name it. It's bad also for the people working in these environments, because every day they're under such pressure. People are not thriving. They're going to work and they're stressed and they're in intensity, and it doesn't have to be this way. Like, to really create great outcomes, it's about creating a culture of calmness and efficiency, but also where people thrive and are really engaged at work. I think the recent studies have shown that global engagement of employees is only at about 24% at work. That's the opportunities. We've got a 76% uplift we could get on employee engagement. And we know all the other metrics that are going on. The big one for me is the resulting position on productivity. Currently, particularly in Australia, which is sub 0%, it doesn't set us up well for the next generation. And for people that know me, they know that my driver is all about how do we help organisations create cultures of continuous improvement and innovation, really become excellent, so we basically help the future for our generations to come. Improve the economy, improve the environmental outcomes, improve people's time at work where our kids and grandkids will work. And for me, there's nothing more important. That's my purpose. Everyone's got their own purpose. But I'm really glad that you're listening today to learn about where we're currently at with the process that we know you can follow to really help an organisation transform and go forward to a better future. Really create that better outcome for the customers they serve, but also the employees they serve, and then also the planet and every other aspect or metric that they're after, turning the dial up on. So let's get into the process. Okay, so many people have supported on developing this process, especially Chris Butterworth and Gary Peterson. Alex Teo's provided input, and also everyone else involved in the Enterprise Excellence Group and anyone that's dealt with us over the years and shared their knowledge. Now, when you look at it, the key to leading into a transformation to really create good outcomes is, first of all, to engage those that are most important. So we call this the assess phase of the journey. You need to assess where you're currently at, but it's also a form of engagement. So the starting point that we believe you should consider is to start with voice of employee and customer and use an excellence model in the way that you conduct that voice of employee and customer. Don't just do your stock standard type of employee engagement survey. And to me, the best approach is face-to-face collaborative conversations. So you could take the work out of the Leading Enterprise Excellence book by Butterworth, Jeavons, Ray, and Dargan that we've done there. And you can look at that model and go, okay, well, I'm going to ask some questions around this and engage employees to really learn from them, but also customers. Now, the interesting thing that happens here is that the employees and customers, they will voice challenges and focus areas of improvement that align directly to what we need to do to achieve excellence. The next part then is to assess is to look at strategic and cultural maturity. Like, where are we at with our strategic and cultural planning and deployment and that whole system, which is critical, but also where are we at in relation to our maturity as an organization on an excellence journey. You could, again, use the Leading Enterprise Excellence Maturity Index there to help you understand your baseline. And the final part in this assess step, which is the first step of 5, can be an extended value stream map. Looking at an organization only creates value at the front line of its organization, like down there with the frontline employees and salespeople, factory workers, warehouse team members. This is where value is created. And it's important to look at how those different departments and divisions and the flows work across that whole process through an organization. But you can also look out from your suppliers to your organization to your customers. And you're looking for how value is flowing through there or not, where the biggest waste is and the challenges in that system and what the root cause of it is. And there's a deeper process you can draw from us on this, which is our How to Do an Effective Process Map guide that we'll do in a future episode. So when this is the first step, that with these 3 elements done well, what you'll end up with is you'll end up with employees and customers excited about the improvement that could be made and feeling they've had a voice on it. You'll end up with some alignment amongst senior leadership and middle management around understanding where we're at on an enterprise excellence journey. And also, you'll know the biggest wastes sitting in your value stream, like those critical processes that sit at the front line of your organization. And it's a really good position to be in because you can instantly start to drive some gains by that value stream analysis and start to do some improvement sprints and blitzes on that to rapidly get some gains. But it also frames you up to help the whole organization really move to one of a culture of continuous improvement and innovation. The next step, everyone, is the design phase, we call it. Now, in the design phase, you're looking at the 2 levers of enterprise excellence, right? These 2 levers is how do we define and lead culture? The other part is getting very clear on your operating or business system, those critical processes in your company that if we get better at these, they will drive ideal behaviors and help us achieve ideal results. Now, in the design phase, what we believe is important is to co-create these. So run co-creation events with frontline middle management teams, small teams, throughout your organization. It doesn't have to be every employee, but like select groups of employees, even if it's a global organization across the world. And you're actually looking to help employees unpack what would be ideal behaviors in our organization if we're really living our culture, and what systems are critical for us to be able to achieve those ideal behaviors and really create a culture of continuous improvement, innovation, and amazing flow. Now, having a facilitator for these events can be a great way to go. And you can draw on many people around the world to get that help. This approach of focus groups, again, creates a level of buy-in and ownership from employees at all levels of the organization, which then sets you up for success to be able to actually embed. It removes a lot of the resistance to change that can happen. But the ultimate next step in design is that senior leadership collaborate and really buy in and own the vision for what's been defined under the ideal behaviors linked to your culture. So you often organizations call this their way, the way that we lead, the way that we behave, the way that we live. And also the operating system or business system, those critical processes and structures that we want to improve in our organization that we wrote about in the book, Leading Enterprise Excellence. And look to get that 100% commitment from senior leadership, because if they don't own it and lead it going forward, it's going to struggle and it's going to be fragile because it could easily be blown out of the water if it's not led from the top. The next step under design is to form a transformation plan. Now, I wouldn't go for a transformation plan that lays out every step and when you're going to do it. More a plan that you get very clear on your vision, the purpose for it, your goals, stakeholders, risks, what's in scope, out of scope, but then also starts to break down what work needs to be done. I love the agile project management approach to this. It's a personal preference coupled with taking a behavioral focus to how we deploy, and I'll chat about that in a minute. So if you look at it, everyone, after this step 2 under design, you've got employees really starting to already understand ideal behaviors and the critical processes or systems, as we call it, in the organization. You've got senior leadership really owning it, what's going to be led forward, as well as a transformation plan. It's a good place to be in. The third step we call build. Now, for an organization to truly achieve excellence, there's a learning journey and capability journey for people to go through. And the best approach to learning is that old technique of I do, we do, you do. And to do that, you've got to have some training and education resources, which the Enterprise Excellence Group has a wealth of resources already built that can be modified and tailored to suit your organization, basically modifying it to what you define as your way and your critical operating or business systems. And also tools and resources like a maturity index. Like these journeys, they take a long time to truly get to the top level of excellence. Now, to achieve that, you do need a maturity index, like some way that you can track team or the whole organization's maturity across critical systems from a level of 1 to 5. We've got templates and resources that the organization can use to modify simply as part of this. And out of this whole piece, the final bit to consider is a recognition system. If an organization doesn't already have a recognition system, it's important at this stage to form it up so that we can build a culture where everyone recognizes ideal behaviors and also great performance of systems and structures and ideal results as well. And the recognition system, although it's one part of the whole piece, it's really important, because without recognition, it's then hard to have more of the crucial conversations that need to happen at times too with certain people who may not be on the journey or may not be living the ideal behaviors. So that is the build phase of this 5-stage process. Out of this, you end up with your training resources, maturity index, a recognition system, and other tools and infrastructure you need to really just lead the journey out going forward. That then places you at the step number 4 on this journey, which is the deploy phase. Now, deployment, I believe there's really only one best way to do that, and that is to start with senior leadership, even the board if you can, and start to form up some critical behaviors or ideal behaviors and implement some few key systems that's part of your business systems so that they lead by example. But secondly, senior leaders become comfortable with the behaviors and processes and structures so that then they're ready to coach and train it further down. Now, this is where the phased deployment really kicks in, because I believe that we shouldn't move past the senior leadership until certain behaviors and systems have been stood up or improved. Once that's achieved, you can then deploy down to middle management. Now, if it takes a little bit of time, that's not a concern, because the middle management will be seeing the senior leadership doing these behaviors and getting involved in these processes over that period of time, which will then make them more receptive to actually embracing it, because it'll be like, okay, well, if they're doing it, we better buy into this and go forward. And once you get to middle management, again, I'd say it's this approach to see certain ideal behaviors come into play, linked to your way, and then also the few key systems you need to be in place before you deploy down to the front line. Once you see those behaviors in place. I think Joe Krebs, a shout out to you, mate, with what you term this, the agile kata, where it's like in martial arts where you've got a kata, people do not progress until they see certain behaviors and capabilities in place. It's very much what it's about. But out of the deploy phase, you end up with a sustainable approach where from the board, senior leadership through middle management to the front line, you end up with behaviors embedded and critical systems in place. And you're in a good position. Now with the deploy phase, you don't have to deploy everywhere at once. As you're going down in layers, a phased approach can be really good, where you phase into certain areas or sites or divisions of the business and gradually work across those different areas phase by phase. So deployment, there's some good practices to consider. Step number 5 is the whole sustain phase. And this is where we find it is critical to build up leaders' capability and leader standard work and look, listen, learn to a high level so that they can really lead where it counts most, which is at the front line. And as they lead in these areas, they are skilled at looking at systems and behaviors and recognizing ideal behaviors and systems that are improving and going well, but also having some thinking about how do I need to improve as a leader and where is some coaching I may need to do to help improve. Now, depending on your level of leadership, you really need to consider who are the people that I coach. I'd pose if you're a senior leader, you're going to be coaching middle management. If you're a middle management or frontline leader, you're going to coach frontline. So it's an important aspect with leader standard work. There's a bit of learning to do here and capability build, but that is something that the Enterprise Excellence Group and others would help organizations form up their own learning systems and their own approach to this. The second key part of sustain is to use the maturity index, the 1 to 5 scale maturity, to review different areas and help leaders and people really reflect on where they're at by way of the culture and critical systems and think about those gaps they want to bridge upcoming. Now, bolting that maturity review process to your strategic cadence, whether that be a monthly or weekly or quarterly cadence, whatever that execution cadence you've got throughout the company for strategy and culture, well, that's a great thing to bolt into it. And I would say at least annually, you do a maturity review and you use that to inform some of the strategic work you're going to do upcoming to help improve. And of course, this happens in a cascaded approach because a maturity review can be done in every team at every level to truly create great outcomes. So everyone, that is a 5-step transformation journey that is the current best way. And I say that because we will keep improving this in the future. Continuous improvement happens to everything that you do in life to truly achieve great things. It takes a little bit of time. It's not a Band-Aid type solution, but when done well, you save so much energy because that time investment to go through these 5 steps and sustain ongoing, it just avoids all this wasted energy and outcomes that's happened so much throughout history. And I think recent studies have been done on project failure and transformation failures and the cost to industry, and it's in the trillions around the world. So everyone, if you're listening to this, you may be thinking, oh, that's 5 steps. Boy, there's a bit in that. But what I'd say to consider is what happens if you don't go through a good process like this that truly embeds, and you could end up with another project where you've thrown a lot of money and effort for little results. And you see this so often where people just roll out a training program on a certain topic and it doesn't stick, whereas people then roll out a project to transform something and it doesn't stick. This approach of the transformation journey that we've created for Enterprise Excellence, it's been proven to work hundreds, if not thousands of times. It's a common pattern that I hear as I talk to the great companies that I haven't directly been involved with, that they are leading behaviors and they're leading systems. And I myself have seen it achieve such amazing results in small, mid, and large organizations. Some of the ones which are leading it out right now are some of our largest in the world and achieving insane productivity gains, engagement gains, quality gains, safety gains, everything that you want to achieve. So everyone, if you want to get hold of this process, go to our website, which is eexg.com.au. That is eexg.com.au. And you can download the Enterprise Excellence Transformation Journey Your Way. There's also the process mapping approach Your Way too, which is where you can use a process mapping technique in isolation to drive some more quick results for those that are looking for the sugar hit. But just note, I'd pose that if you really want to create a culture of continuous improvement and innovation, it is something along the lines of this journey that you need to consider. And for us, it's running more and more companies through this process that will truly help us create a better future. Create that future where people come to work and thrive at work, pumped, where companies are making and achieving all the ideal results for their customers, and things are just getting better economically, socially, and environmentally, which is such a good thing. It certainly drives us in the Enterprise Excellence Group and keeps us putting the energy into the podcast and the community and everything that we do to really help. So everyone, I really hope you gained some good value for that. I'm not going to do the 2-minute tips from this episode because it's my own episode on it. And I'll keep other shows coming in the future where we can share current best thinking and practices that we've got to really help you guys, everyone out there. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. Feel free to go to the YouTube channel and our website to gain additional information. And please share this episode and like it to just help others learn out there, because half the challenge is that people and organizations just don't know this stuff. The ones that have achieved insane outcomes in this last 30 years, they know it. They lead systems and they lead culture and behaviors. But the challenge that we've got around the world at the minute is that people just don't understand this. Systems thinking has been lost from our vocabulary. Most people see a system as a software, whereas a software is a tool. And also the piece around how do you really lead culture around defining behaviors and getting clear on your systems and then building leaders' capability to lead it. That's not highly known. There's all these silver bullet type books and content that's been written and released that just sends people down rabbit warrens versus really focusing in on what will work, what will embed, what will get sustainable results. And go forward and enjoy, everyone. And please share any feedback that you've got on this show or others that we do. I'd be really glad to learn and use that feedback for further improvement. Thanks again, everyone. Bye for now.